So Hare Krishna, everybody. Good evening, and we are now in day 3, Bhagavad Gita, Gita Gyan course level 1. And we'd like to start off by dedicating this course to the founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And we'd like to begin offering some prayers on this. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. If everybody can join together with me and also say these prayers together. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we do this as an offering to Sri Sri Nitai Sundar Gaura Hari as well. So before we begin, it's also customary that we glorify Bhagavad Gita. And this is one of the, we have been doing the Gita Mahatmya, which is composed by Sripad Sankaracharya. And the last 2 verses we have completed. So this is the 3rd verse. So let me just say it. Just a moment, I will just mute those who are not muted. Please don't mind. We will have Q&A later. So there are some probably newcomers today as well. So today would be the last day for anyone new to join, because after this, it's not going to be so easy for everybody to follow many generic terms and all that. So with that, yeah, so I'll do a bit of recap for chapter 1, chapter 2 very quickly, and then we will bring you to chapter 3. And just for those who are new also, so in general, the terms of address we use, okay, my name is Sudarshan Das, that's my initiated name, and my IC name is Shastri Sivaguru, and so welcome everybody. And generally we call everyone, the men we address them as Prabhu, and the ladies we address them as Mataji. So just to let you know, so that we are not awkward in the way we address each other. Okay, so I'll just say the verse. Maline mochanam pumsam jalasnanam dine dine Shakrit Gita Mrita Snanam Samsara Malanashanam. This is verse 3. What's the meaning? One may cleanse himself daily by taking bath in water. But if one takes a bath even once in the sacred Ganges water of Bhagavad Gita, for him, the dirt of material life is altogether vanquished. So for those of us who would want to be free from materialism and enter the realm of spirituality, then the Bhagavad Gita is the right book for us. So it's even more potent than the Ganges water, Ganga. Why is that so? Because it's the song of God. Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad means Bhagavan, and Gita means song, and it is directly spoken by the Supreme Lord. So before we begin also, let us say this prayer together 3 times. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, so we will do a bit of quick recap for chapter 1. So the most salient point that I'd like to draw your attention to is basically we were discussing about how Arjuna was put into illusion, and then for the purpose of the Bhagavad Gita being spoken, and also to bring out the beautiful qualities of Arjuna. So even though he was put into compassion, what came out? Even though he was put into illusion, what came out was compassion. So very saintly qualities, where he was very much concerned so much for not himself or his victory or getting kingdom and all that. He was worried about the destruction of the dynasty. So what were the excuses he was giving for not fighting? Number one, if you remember already last time, yesterday also we recapped again. To save time, I will just go through it. Compassion, C. There's an acronym which we use, CESDI, SESD. So C stands for compassion. And he did not want to kill people. Why should we create violence, right? So he was arguing in that direction. And then even though I win a kingdom, and what's the use of getting this kingdom when so many great elders are killed in this battle? And then due to that, overcome by sin. And then he talked about how the destruction of the family will take place when so many guardians and fathers and husbands are killed. So the family traditions will be destroyed, and this will lead to ruination of the society, and they will progressively move towards hell. So then after that, in chapter 2, we also heard another reason, Arjuna's indecision. So says D, so the I stands for indecision. So Arjuna, after saying, despite arguing not to fight, but still he was confused. He was still thinking, I know, but I have all these reasons which I'm giving, which why I should not fight. But at the same time, these people are adharmic, and they are ready. They are not thinking like how I'm thinking. Duryodhana is very much ready to have the fight. So then I don't know what to do. So therefore, he was indecisive, and out of indecisiveness, he just kept his bow down. And when this happened, Krishna, being the charioteer over there, right? One of Krishna's names is Partha Sarthi. Partha Sarthi means charioteer, and Partha refers to Arjuna, son of Pritha. Son of Pritha means Partha. Pritha is Kunti Devi. So son of Kunti is Arjuna, and Partha Sarthi means the charioteer of Arjuna. So this is Krishna was playing this role. And as Arjuna was saying all this, then Krishna, he denounces whatever reasons Arjuna gave. He said, these are kashmalam, kutastoa kashmalam idam. Where did all these impurities come from? And then he's saying this is due to hridaya daurbalyam, weakness of the heart, because one is moved by sentiment and not by dharma. One understands dharma, but due to illusion, one is moved by sentiment. And then he says, such talk from you is not befitting an Aryan, one who knows the goal of life. So one who knows the goal of life will not be moved by mere sentiment in the unavoidable discharge of his duty. And what more, this is spiritual duty. So therefore, and Arjuna after that says, no, but how can I shoot arrows at those who are worshipable by me? I should be garlanding them with flowers. And rather, instead, I'm going to shoot arrows at them. How can you ask me to do this? Oh, Madhusudana, killer of the Madhu demon, Arjuna will ask. Because he's telling Krishna, you are killer of the Madhu demon, but do you want me to be the killer of my grandfather, my family members? But after that, he became confused, and this is where he shows one of his most celebrated saintly quality. He acknowledges his weakness due to the hridaya daurbalyam, and he surrenders and accepts Krishna as his guru. And then he tells Krishna, Karpanya dosho pahata swabhavaha prachamitvam dharma sammudaha. I have been confused. My dharma has become confused. So then, Yat Shreyashan, you know what is good for me. Nishchitam bruhitam me. Sishyaste sham shadimam. I am now a Sishya, disciple unto you, and please instruct me, for you know what is best for me. So this is what is necessary in situations where humanity, when it is lost for direction, it behooves humanity to take direction from authority. And this authority is none other than the word of God. Of course, Arjuna was very fortunate to get the Lord himself to directly instruct him. But through the medium of Arjuna, the Bhagavad Gita, the same instruction is given to all humanity to take shelter of and to take guidance of. So after Arjuna's indecision, we discussed in chapter 2, Arjuna surrendered, right? And from that moment onwards, Krishna began to give instructions. So first of all, the beginning point of all spiritual instruction is to first of all understand who we are. So we are not the body, we are the soul. So this knowledge is known as Atma Tattva, and it is a subset of what is called Sankhya Yoga. So Sankhya Yoga refers to the science of understanding what is matter and what is spirit, to know the difference, to analyze the difference. So that is called Sankhya Yoga. And in this way, he goes on and to discuss about the nature of the soul. So he begins by telling Arjuna, why are you lamenting? He's trying to address the point of compassion. Why are you lamenting? This is not necessary. So like that, he goes on to say, the soul is eternal. See, you're not killing them because they cannot be killed. The self is the person. The soul is the Atma, is the person inside that body. So who you are talking about, the one you are talking and everything and conversing with, that person is the Atma inside. So you may kill the body, but he is not slain. So we discussed about how the various qualities of the soul, how the soul was immutable. It cannot be changed. It cannot be burnt by fire. It cannot be moistened by water. It cannot be dried by the wind. So all these verses we discussed yesterday, and how we also learned how the soul is anu, very, very small, and how it is also situated in the region of the heart. So the region, in the area, the space where the heart is normally situated. It doesn't mean that it is part of the heart. It simply means that it occupies the same space as where the heart, the GPS coordinate of the heart. So that's where the soul is situated. And from that tiny point, it pervades throughout the body. So it pervades like an aura. So this soul situated from that point, it pervades like an aura. And what is this aura? So that aura, there are some technical names for it, but in general, the aura is basically consciousness, chetasa. So what is the symptom of life? The symptom of life is basically the symptom of the soul, which is consciousness. It can be felt at every part of the body. And the Lord also says how the soul transmigrates. So it's not, just like how the body changes from youth to old age, and then at the time of death, the body dies, but the soul merely moves on to a different body. And like that, we discussed how it goes on and on eternally through various species of life. The science of reincarnation and the transmigration of the soul. Then, okay, this is the part in 217 where it says the symptom of the soul, that which pervades the entire body, you should know to be indestructible. That's the soul. No one is able to destroy the imperishable soul. But Arjuna was, in his mind, Arjuna was thinking, yes, Krishna, you are right. They will die. Sorry, they won't die. They are eternal. The body may die, but I am not going to have their association anymore. I will lose them. They may go somewhere else. And where is my reciprocation with these people who I'm going to kill? So then Krishna, anticipating what goes on in probably all our minds or in the mind of Arjuna, he gives the next verse after that, 2:14. Chapter 2, verse 14, he will say, Matra sparsastu kaunteya sitoshana sukha dukkada agama paina nityo stam stitik shashva bharata. He will say, one needs to, yes, it's painful, it's difficult, but you have to tolerate it. So you need to learn how to tolerate happiness and distress, because we discussed a bit of this also, the nature of happiness and distress in this world. It comes and goes like the seasons, like how the rainy season comes and the summer season comes. It comes automatically. We do not search for distress, and yet distress comes to us. However much we search for happiness, it's not all the time happiness is there. So it's fixed. The level of distress and the level of happiness, we will talk about this later on also. But for now, Krishna is telling Arjuna, therefore tolerate titikshashva bharata. You need to learn how to tolerate it. And after you tolerate, right, then Arjuna may think, why should I tolerate? Why can't I just, indulge in it? So why? Then Krishna would say, because if you learn to tolerate, tolerance is basically the ticket to liberation. If one is a tolerant person, one learns how to tolerate the dualities of life, dualities like happiness, distress, heat, cold, all the various dualities of life, then one becomes eligible to attain liberation. Liberation from what? Liberation from the cycle of birth and death. That is disgusting. I'm sorry, I'll just mute you again. Okay. Right, so after teaching Sankhya Tattva, this Atma Tattva, right? So Krishna goes on to go give more details, further Sankhya. So further discussion about the soul from verses 226 to 230, where he talks about the he differentiates how the Atma or the soul is indestructible and ever the same, unchanging, immutable, whereas the exact opposite of all of those is the body. So the body is called sarira in Sanskrit. Body, that's sarira. So that's perishable because it's made out of matter. So therefore, Krishna again reiterates there is no necessity for lamentation. And in this way, he's telling Arjuna, you are lamenting for, you can, the separation is there, but actually your argument of compassion is misplaced, because you should not be compassionate for the body mainly. So in your duty is a Kshatriya, and you need to uphold Dharma. So in order to uphold Dharma, you cannot give this reason as compassion and say, I will not fight and I will allow adharma or irreligion to take sway. So we don't want that. So therefore, he negates the argument of compassion to Arjuna. We will go in more detail about the topics that Krishna discusses in level 2 if you all continue with us. But right now, we are moving through the topics, and then we will go to the next point. And then from 31 to 37, the verses in chapter 2, Krishna will talk about what is called karma kanda. Karma kanda means materialistic activities. So even here he's trying to counter Arjuna's argument of no enjoyment and sin and destruction of family dynasty. He tells Arjuna, you are a Kshatriya. So Kshatriyas, you are sworn to uphold dharma and duty, and you have to fight. So if you say no, then who is going to defend dharma? So you not fighting is going to be the cause of sin, rather than you fighting in the name of dharma. Because though you may kill, but you are acting according to your duty, and therefore there will not be sin. It's when you don't fight, that's when you're going to have sin. So therefore that's the first point he mentions. And then he says, why are you talking about no enjoyment? If you die, you will go to heavenly planets and enjoy, because you died the death of a Kshatriya, a warrior's death. You cannot come and say, I'll run away from battle, and then if you die in a bed, you're not going to achieve anything. So Therefore, even if you die, you will go to heaven. But if you don't die, you will win. And if you win, you will get the kingdom. So that is where from are you saying that there will be no enjoyment? And then Krishna also negates the argument of destruction of the family dynasty. So if you don't kill these upstarts, if you don't kill all these kings who are demonic in nature and who have completely disregarded dharma. So that's a long story, how they disregarded dharma. If you read Mahabharata, in many, many instances, especially the disrobing of Draupadi in a public assembly in the capital of the Aryan kingdom. So therefore, that is the main problem. So when such a situation can happen, where is dharma? So therefore, Krishna tells Arjuna, if you don't fight, then these people will hold sway. The world will fall under them. And then where is dharma? So then automatically when there is no dharma, the family dynasties will not be followed. The traditions will not be followed. So then you will then be the cause. Because of you not fighting, you will be the cause of adharma, the rise of adharmic progeny. So then what should Arjuna do? So obviously fight. But then Krishna begins to hint something a little higher. So something higher than simply gain and loss. So Karma Kanda is all about material gain and material loss. So he goes beyond that. He says, fight, but do it as duty alone. Don't worry about the result. Don't worry about whether I want to fight. Because the point is, he's trying to say, keep the motivation neutral. Do not do your duty because you are expecting good results or you are expecting something to enjoy out of it, right? So fight, but do your duty alone. And then so this is basically the foundation stone of yoga. It begins the basic of what is called yoga, and then he speaks about this in more detail. So what is this yoga? So we may ask, yoga, right? If we talk about yoga, does that mean Surya Namaskar? Does that mean all the different exercises that we do? So usually the common connotation of yoga would mean this. And nowadays, especially, it becomes worse due to westernization and everything becomes watered down. So now we have yoga for cats, doga for dogs. So it becomes extremely trivialized, something sacred. And actually what yoga means it comes from the root word yuj in Sanskrit, and that means to unite or to connect. Actually, to connect is a better word. So connect with what? Connect with the Supreme, just like this painting by Michelangelo in the Sistine Chapel in Rome. So Michelangelo doesn't know how God looks like. So Christianity doesn't know how God looks like. So they know God, but God is very old. So they thought God looks old. So Michelangelo imagined the description like this. And then he's showing how God in heaven is trying to reach out to man on earth. So this is what yoga means, how to connect with the Supreme Lord. So Krishna continues, perform your duty equipoised. That means don't worry about gain or loss. Don't worry about what you're going to enjoy or what you're not going to enjoy. Simply do your work, simply do your duty for the sake of duty, as a matter of, like how various duties, like, there are ladies who are mothers. So for the sake of duty, they do their duties. Whether it is hot or cold, the wife will cook, right? It doesn't matter whether it's a summer season or a cold season. So in the same way, various other duties can be described. So, O Arjuna, abandoning all attachment to success or failure, such equanimity is called yoga. So equilibrium, equally poised, balanced. So we talked about what yoga is in chapter 2, but why do we do yoga? Yes, we want to connect, okay. So, but is there any other reason? So what are the phalan? Phalan means the fruit. So basically verses 2.50 to 2.53 talks about the fruit of what you get when we do yoga. And what is really yoga? Yoga is not just about exercises. It is about what is called the art of all work. How to execute work in the right way, or how to execute duty or dharma in the right way. So one who does this, the fruit is he rids himself of both good and bad reactions. So yeah, bad reactions I don't want, but good reactions. So we will talk more about this later on in other chapters. So then he also attains the state beyond all miseries. So that is one of the main things about why one should do yoga. He becomes free, he attains that state beyond miseries. And what else? He attains the divine consciousness. So these are all given in the verses. So verse 51 and verse 53. So as I mentioned again previously also, we cannot go through every single verse in this particular course. There are other courses for that. Bhagavad Gita, there is a longer course and all that, which takes a lot of other commitments where we go in detail each verse and everything. But here we will just go through the main points so we can understand the flow of all 18 chapters in 18 days within 1.5 hours. So then these points are very important. Attain the state beyond all miseries. Attain the divine consciousness. So what is this state of all miseries? We do not have an experience of that because we may not have seen such people. So Arjuna also felt the same way. He thought, no, oh, what is this state beyond misery? What is this divine consciousness? Then Krishna gives an explanation, because Arjuna will ask, how does such a person behave? How does he sit? How does he talk? How does he walk? What does he do? So then Krishna will respond. So this state beyond all misery, the person who has attained this level of divine consciousness, he is known as, there are many names for him, and here he is called the Sthita Prajna, one who is situated in divinity. So Krishna will begin to describe that person from 254 to 270. Why is it important? We will talk about that also in more detail in later topics. But basically it's for us to recognize the genuine person who is, because nowadays we have a lot of cheaters, right? So therefore, how to recognize true divinity in a person. So Sthita Prajna describes this. And ultimately, what's the goal of all this Sthita Prajna? These people who are in divine consciousness, they are aiming at one thing only. They are aiming. So what is that goal? The goal is called prayojan. Prayojan is the Sanskrit word for goal. What is your objective? So that is described in 271 to 272. So we went through all these things previously, how Krishna addressed indecisiveness and all that. Now, I promised a story yesterday to end chapter 2, but I didn't have time, so I'll just quickly go through this story. An example of who we, when we say Sthita Prajna, one in divine consciousness, we need to understand clearly what we mean by that person. Sometimes we have, different ideas on what that would mean. So we have a story. This story is from the Srimad Bhagavatam. And here it describes the example of Sthita Prajna. And he's telling the story of Ambarish Maharaj. So Ambarish Maharaj was a great king many thousands of years ago during a different age. And he was he was what we would say a Raja Rishi, a perfect king. He was very saintly in quality, in character, and and beyond saintliness, he was a great devotee of the Supreme Lord. He was a great devotee of Vishnu. So Maharaj Ambarish would always, he was such a great devotee, despite being a king, despite being engrossed in worldly affairs, in handling the kingdom, in managing his cities and all that. He was the emperor of the whole world, actually, at that time. So Maharaj Ambarish, he would always engage his mind in thinking of the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. So his mind, he will use that way to always remember the lotus feet of Vishnu. His words, he will always describe and glorify the Supreme Lord. He will use his hands in cleaning the Lord's temple, and he will use his ears in hearing the words spoken by the Supreme Lord. And then he will use his eyes in seeing the deities of the Lord in the temple. And he will use his sense of touch in touching the bodies of the devotees of the Lord. He engaged embracing them and all that, massaging them. He engaged his sense of smell in smelling the fragrance of the tulasi which is offered to the Lord. And he engaged his tongue in tasting only prasadam, which is food offered to the Lord. And he would only speak, he will continuously glorify the Lord also. And he will use his legs in walking to the holy places and temples of the Lord. And he will use his head to bow down before the Lord. So in this way, he engaged his entire body in worshipping the Supreme Lord. So this is what he was doing. And it said that the Lord was also very pleased with him. But Ambarish Maharaj doesn't know that. But nevertheless, he would worship him in this way. And together with his queen, both of them were equally in the same mind frame. And they would observe all the festivals, and they would observe especially Ekadasi. Now, Ekadasi is, the moon, there is the waning moon and the waxing moon. The moon will grow in size, right? From Amavasya, then Pratipad, the first Tithi, Pratipad, then Dvitiya, Tritiya, Chaturthi, Panchami, Shashti, Saptami, Ashtami, Navami, Dashami. The 10th day is Dashami, and then the 11th day is Ekadasi. So, and then like that 12, 13, 14, the 15th day will be Purnima. So like that, then the moon will again reduce back to Amavasya. So the Ekadasi day is a very special day. The 11th day is a special day for Lord Hari. And it is and what devotees do, they fast on this day. So it comes twice in a month. So there are, every month the moon waxes and wanes, right? So the fasting is done. So on this particular day, on one Ekadasi, Maharaj Ambarish was fasting. And while he was fasting, then came a great sage. After fasting, they have to break fast at a certain time on the next day before the time passes. So he fasted the whole day, he served, he did a lot of devotional activities and everything. And then the next day on Dwadasi, when he was about to break fast, at that time he had a visitor, a guest. And this guest was the great sage Durvasha Muni. Now Durvasha Muni was a very powerful Muni, sage. And he had all kinds of mystic powers and everything due to his long years of meditation and everything. So he was a great sage. And when he came, Maharaj, at that time the culture was, when sages and brahmanas come, even the kings, because they are Kshatriyas, right? They will respect the brahmanas and the sages more than they respect the Kshatriyas. So therefore he invited Durvasa Muni, he offered him a seat, and then he wanted to give him food, prasadam, before he himself breaks fast. Because serving guests is very important. It's important to note that the guest is served first before they can eat. So but Durvasa Muni said, I just came from a long distance travel. So the culture is, before we eat food, we should take a bath, especially when we have gone for a traveling. So therefore he said, I'll go to the Yamuna, which is nearby, and I will take a bath, and then I will come back. So therefore Durvasa Muni went, and then Ambarish Maharaj waited. But as he was waiting, the time for the breakfast was about to pass. Now, if he breaks fast after this time, then it's considered that the vrata or the vow of this Ekadasi is not fulfilled properly. So it has to be done correctly. So then he was in a quandary. So he was thinking, okay, what to do? So he asked his Brahmana ministers, shall I, in the scriptures it is said that if I drink water, water is considered, you can also break fast by drinking water, because he was fasting even without water. So if I break fast with water, then water is considered like breaking fast, but at the same time, it's also not considered like as if you're eating. So therefore, I will do this just to complete the vow of Ekadasi. So he did this. He drank just a few drops of water to consider the fast is broken. So, but then after that, right at that time, Durvasa Muni came back. And then when he came back, and then he somehow knew with his mystic power that that Ambarish Maharaj had broken his fast. He's supposed to wait according to the culture, the rules of etiquette provided by Vedic Dharma. The guest has to wait. The host has to wait until the guest comes, and he has to be fed first. And when Durvasa Muni saw that the king, who's supposed to be the primary example for all people in this land, when he is behaving in such an adharmic manner, according to his calculation, he thought that the king was behaving adharmically by drinking this water, by eating without waiting for Durvasa Muni to come. So he became very angry. He thought that this king has stooped. He's purposely insulting me, that he has now stooped to this low level. So, and Durvasa Muni is a very, he is a bit, his nature is that he has the special pastime on being a bit angry now and then. So therefore what he did, he could not tolerate it, and then out of anger, he chastised Ambarish Maharaj, and then he said, you must be killed. So you are not fit to be king in this situation. So therefore, because you have shown a very bad example to the rest of your kingdom. So then he plucked a bunch of hair from his head, and then he threw it on the ground and uttered a mantra, starting with hum, like that. So that mantra immediately ignited that lock of hair, and that lock of hair became a great fiery demon. And it was so fiery, it was like as if the fire was growing greater and greater. And then he instructed this fiery demon to go and kill this Ambarish Maharaj. So now this fiery demon was moving towards Ambarish Maharaj, but Ambarish Maharaj, without his knowledge, actually, because he was so devoted to the Lord being so pleased, the Lord actually gave his own Sudarshan disc, the chakra, his own Sudarshan chakra to protect his kingdom. Such was the devotion and the piety and the saintliness of King Ambarish, that the Sudarshan chakra of Lord Vishnu himself came to protect him. So then it appeared right in front of him suddenly, and it completely destroyed this demon. So, and the demon was gone. And then after that, the Sudarshan chakra did not wait. It went after Durvasa Muni. So Durvasa Muni, he could not resist Sudarshan chakra. So he ran. So he ran to different places. But wherever he ran, where he went underwater, he went over the mountains, he went into the cave, he went to different places to hide. But wherever he went, the Sudarshan chakra was always following him. And then in this way, he ran to the heavenly planets. He went to Indraloka, and then he went, still the Sudarshan chakra followed. Then he went finally to Lord Brahma, the highest planet in the material creation, in Satyaloka or Brahma Loka. And then he fell on Brahma's feet, and then he said, please save me. But Brahma said, I can't do anything, I'm sorry. So then after that, he went to Lord Shiva, and then Lord Shiva in Kailash, which is beyond the material creation, within the by Viraja river. And over there, Lord Shiva, he went to Lord Shiva and he fell down at his feet and said, please save me. Then Lord Shiva also told him, I'm sorry, I can't do anything for you. So you can only go to Lord Vishnu, because Sudarshan Chakra is Lord Vishnu's weapon. So he may give you assistance. So then Durvasa Muni ran to Lord Vishnu. He went to Vaikuntha Loka, went through the 7 doors, and then entered and fell down at the feet of Lord Vishnu and then said, please save me. And then Lord Vishnu replied, I am completely under the control of my devotees. Lord Vishnu said, I am completely under the control of my devotees, because they do so many activities just for my pleasure. He said, I am not at all independent, because my devotees are completely devoid of material desires. I sit only within the cause of their hearts. What to speak of my devotee? Even those who are devotees of my devotees are very dear to me. So then he says, since pure devotees give up their homes, wives, children, relatives, riches, and even their lives simply to serve me, without any desire for material improvement in this life, how can I give up such devotees? So the Lord said, just as a chaste woman brings her husband under her control simply by serving him, in the same way, the pure devotees who are equal to everyone, they are attached to me in the core of my heart and bring me under their full control. So this is the beautiful phrase given by Lord Vishnu. It is actually from the Srimad Bhagavatam. And in this way, he said, but you see, my devotees, they are very merciful. So therefore, please go back to Ambarish Maharaj, who you have offended, and beg his forgiveness. And in this way, the Sudarshan Chakra will be able to leave you. So therefore he ran. So the Sudarshan Chakra still followed him, went all over the universe. And then finally he came back to Ambarish Maharaj. And then you see this picture. He came and dropped at his feet. And then he asked him, please, I did not realize, he glorified Ambarish Maharaj then. I did not realize that you were such an exalted personality. So I was mistaken. So please kindly save me. Then immediately Ambarish Maharaj, he was embarrassed. While this happened, 1 year passed on earth, while Durvasa Muni ran to different places in the universe. And throughout this time, Ambarish Maharaj was very repentant, and he actually did not eat anything also for that 1 year. He only drank water and he maintained his body in that way. So he was fasting until his guest Durvasa Muni would return. So when finally he returned, Ambarish Maharaj offered wonderful prayers to Durvasa Muni, to Sudarshan Chakra, glorifying Sudarshan Chakra. And then in this way appeased Sudarshan Chakra, and Sudarshan Chakra disappeared and went back to Lord Vishnu. And this is the story of the Sthita Prajna. So who is the Sthita Prajna? The Durvasa Muni or Ambarish Maharaj? So here it is to contrast that Sthita Prajna, or one who is in divine consciousness, does not necessarily mean one who is, renounced in the forest, living an austere life, doing meditation, or, having mystic powers. Not necessarily. So it could be even a normal person, someone who is simply executing his duties as if he's like a normal, ordinary person. Could be any householder, any person at home or wherever, simply doing their duty, upholding. But it's not the duty that's important, it's the consciousness, why they are doing their duty. So just like that, Maharaj Ambarish, despite doing all his various duties, his mind, his entire body, his entire senses, it was fixed in the worship of the Supreme Lord. So this is an example of Sthita Prajna. So with that, we complete chapter 2. And let me look at the time. It was 9:47. We will move to chapter 3, Karma Yoga. A little bit behind schedule, but let me try to finish. We may exceed the time again to go to 9:30. I kindly beg your forbearance on that. Okay, so chapter 3 is entitled Karma Yoga. So, the hint of karma, the art of action, the art of doing duty was hinted in chapter 2. Remember chapter 2, I mentioned it's like a preview. It just gives a snippet of what's waiting for us in the rest of the chapters. So chapter 3 goes into detail about the art of karma. Karma means action, yoga. So the yoga of action. So it begins with this verse. Arjuna uvacha jayasi chet karmanaste mata buddhir janardana tat kim karma nigore mam niyojayasi keshava. Arjuna said, O Janardana, O Keshava, why do you want to engage me in this ghastly warfare? If you think that intelligence or yoga is better than fruitive work. So Arjuna is asking for clarification because in chapter 2, Krishna will say fight. And then after that, he went on saying, but do it for the sake of duty. And then he will go on to say, but do it eventually for me. And then he will say that, people in exalted consciousness, in divine consciousness, he described the qualities of all these people, right? In chapter 2. So then Arjuna was hearing and then say, if you are saying, yoga is good because it will lead to divine consciousness. So then why do you want me to fight? What does that has to do with work? Because Krishna didn't really give a full explanation in chapter 2. He only gave one snippet. He said, work, but do it as a sake of duty and do it for me. But he did not explain in detail. So that's why he's asking, Arjuna, he's thinking yoga means what? Balance, go to the forest. And he had a misunderstanding of the conception of yoga. So then Arjuna continue. My intelligence is bewildered by your equivocal instructions because first you're saying fight, then you're saying yoga. How to compute? How I can't see the correlation. Therefore, please tell me decisively which will be the most beneficial for me. So basically, why fight if better to be a yogi? Verses 1 to 2. So then Krishna will give an explanation of what is what and all that. So he says there are two paths, right? And one is by far superior. So he will say that in verses 3.3 to 3.7. So he will say there are two classes of men who try to realize the self. That means those who are aiming for divine consciousness. Jnana yogena sankhyanam jnana or karma yogina yoginam. These two parts. The first branch is jnana yogina sankhyanam. So jnana, I call it the jnana path, right? The path of knowledge. This is basically, what is this path of knowledge? Basically, some people, they are inclined to understand things by experiment, by philosophical speculation, by studying on their own and trying to, search, experiment, trying to understand on their own in different ways until they come to a conclusion. So the bottoms up method. So you see, knowledge can come through top down or it can go through bottom up. So basically the Jnana Yogena Sankhyanam is sort of like a bottoms up method, whereas the Karma Yogena Yoginam or Bhakti path, the other path is Bhakti. So one is the Jnana path and the other is the Bhakti path. And Krishna will say, and others by devotional service. So these are the two classes of men who try to realize the self. And remember what he says here, one is by far superior. So he begins to hint at something. But before we go in detail with the paths and everything, Krishna is telling Arjuna, yeah, so you see there are two paths. So neither of this path starts with you not doing anything. So you want to run away, you want to go to the forest in frustration, and then you don't want to do your duty. So not doing your duty is not going to bring you to either path. So doing nothing is not the solution. right? Na karmanam anarambha naishkarmyam purushosnute. So like that he goes, not by merely abstaining from work can one achieve freedom from reaction, or by renunciation alone can one attain perfection. So he says that just by not doing anything and going to the forest, that doesn't mean necessarily that you are free from reaction, because there are a lot of factors. We will go through those later on. And even if you manage to renounce, because you can go to the forest, you can say out of frustration, oh, why am I going through all this suffering? Some people, they get married, and then when the marriage becomes horrible, then they will say, yeah, I wish I can just escape and go to the forest. Let me just become a sannyasi. They will say out of frustration. But when they become a sannyasi with that kind of a reason, then it's not like they have conquered their senses. So they may, wherever they are meditating or situating, their mind is not controlled. It will still be thinking about many other things. So that is not going to help. But even if those people manage to attain renunciation means completely they are detached. But detachment alone cannot attain perfection. That is just one of the stepping stones. That doesn't guarantee divine consciousness. Not yet. So therefore, Krishna, he's not asking him to not do work. So therefore, Krishna says, perform your prescribed duty. For doing so is better than not working. One cannot even maintain one's physical body without work. So therefore, Krishna tells Arjuna, going to the forest and meditating like how you want to do is not going to help you in any way. So these were what we discussed from verses 3.8 all the way to verse 3.32. Krishna will give lots of points on this to convince the reader on this aspect. So it's like a knife. A knife can be used in the hands of a criminal. The knife is something very bad. He can kill you, he can maim you, in the hands of a criminal. But in the hands of a surgeon, the knife can save lives. So this knife can kill, this knife can also save. So therefore, knife is not the problem. And similarly, activities or duty or work or duty, basically dharma, this is not the problem. So giving up dharma is not the solution. It is about applying it correctly. So what is this applying correctly? So then Krishna will talk about what is this applying the work correctly. The secrets of karma yoga. This is the first yoga. So I'll say this verse. Yajñartat karma no anyatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha tat artam karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. Work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. Otherwise, work causes bondage in this material world. So therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duty for his satisfaction. And in that way, you will always remain free from bondage. So this is another, what I call revelation verses, very, very important verses. Verses which give us very big points. Like in chapter 2, we heard about transmigration of the soul, how the soul is eternal, how it goes from one body to another. So that's a major thing, right? Then a lot of hints were given. And now the second milestone in our learning is this particular verse, where it says the secret of duty, the secret of doing duty. We don't do our duties because we expect to enjoy its results. That's not the motivation. That motivation will keep us in bondage. It will give us reactions. And these reactions will keep us trapped in this material world. And in this way, we will take birth after birth. So he says, do your duty, which is prescribed duty. Everybody has prescribed duty. A husband has his duty. A wife has her duty. A child has his duty. And a teacher will have his duty. A king will have his duty. So like that, everybody. How to know these duties? These duties are described in the Mahabharata, in the Shanti Parva. And it's also described in Manu Samhita, in many, many places, in the Vedas, Atharva Veda. So like that, duty is described, duties of mankind. So he's saying, do these duties, but you do it, don't worry about the result, whether you will get it or you don't. You try your best. You do your duty, because it's supposed to be a sacrifice for Vishnu. So when we are sacrificing for Vishnu, we should not simply do, half-heartedly. We should put our full, what do you say? We should put our full effort, our full mind into doing something. And at the end of it, it's not for anything else. We say that I did this work, I did this job, I did this duty for the Lord's satisfaction, for Vishnu's satisfaction. I in the mind, we give it over to the Lord, like that. So before we start the work, we take the Lord's blessings and we tell, and then after that, we also, at the completion of the work, we offer these results to the Lord. So this is the art of work. It is not just simply we say so, it's a matter of the mind consciousness. Our consciousness has to have that faith, and one has to imbibe this. So this is when one behaves this way, then one is acting in karma yoga. He's called a karma yogi. So what is yoga in this sense? Yoga is basically your beginning. The idea of yoga is we are now beginning on the transcendence, how to attain divinity, to go beyond this material world. So it begins by being free of reactions. But still, we may start this way, we may do things like this, right? But we are not yet purified in our consciousness. So we are beginning, we have some ways to go. So we have understood this idea, and then we try, but in our heart, we cannot repress ourselves. We may have the desire, we still may desire the fruits deep in our heart. So the moment when we no longer desire the fruits, that's when renunciation is said to have been achieved. So it's a process, step by step, eventually, until we reach renunciation. So, but in the beginning, we may desire the fruits. So therefore, what to do? And then Krishna will tell us what to do. All living bodies subsist on food grains, which are produced from rains. Rains are produced by performance of yagya, and yagya is born of prescribed duties. So what Krishna is saying here, Krishna is generally giving the cycle of prosperity. He's telling how you can attain prosperity, because we may have desires, right? Like how just now I mentioned, still one may be desiring the fruit. So then what to do for those who are desiring the fruit? So Krishna tells, right? So therefore perform sacrifice. Basically he says perform yagya. So sacrifice, that means if you are doing something and you're trying to get a gain out of it, so some of that gain which you have got, give it away in sacrifice. So that is what the idea here is. So the world works this way, the entire material creation. Grains are produced by rains, and rains are, and basically he's saying that the prosperity of the world, the conducive environment of the world is subjected to how much the population of the world is saintly, or how much they are able to perform sacrifices. So sacrifice here, not necessarily it means fire sacrifice or anything like that, or killing something. It basically means the sacrificial mentality, to give, to do it as an austerity. Like anything those days, in previous times, even in few decades ago, like for example, the institution of marriage. Marriage is a sacred thing. It is basically a sacrifice. So one takes an ashram. This ashram is called Grihastha ashram, which is the ashram of householder life. And basically it begins with sacrifice. The husband sacrifices, he works hard and everything, and the wife sacrifices, new situation, new environment, serve the husband and all that. So it's a lot of sacrifice on each other's part. It's not about I love you, you love me, and then we fight and things like that. So it's duties, and these duties will eventually, patiently executed, will lead to fortune. So this is what Krishna is saying. So therefore, If you desired if you still have desires in your heart, then at least do it legally, at least do it lawfully. There are no shortcuts. One has to sacrifice, and in this way, one can attain. So like that, in those days, in previous days, people used to perform sacrifice. So the king will collect everything, and then they will have fire sacrifice, and then they will pour in, auspicious items like ghee, which is very expensive. So like that, and all these things is done. All these articles are given as an oblation to Lord Vishnu. And in this way, the devatas are satisfied, the Lord blesses everybody, and in this way, the cycle of prosperity continues. So this is the problem. So nowadays, as you can see, things are progressively getting worse and worse. So, and the mentality of the population in the world in general is certainly not one of sacrifice. It's more of, that died with the older generation probably, and maybe in some other places. But in general, it's a society of instant gratification. I want something, I want it now. So we have Grab for it, we have Lazada for it, we have everything for it ready. So no one really offers anything in sacrifice. So it's a problem. So then Krishna continues. A self-realized man. So he finished talking about that. So, earlier we were saying how, what if I have, one may still be desiring the fruits. So when that is so, at least perform sacrifices. But he still wants to talk something beyond. So he's going back to yoga. Now, performing sacrifices is not yoga. It is karma kanda. It is still fruitive activity, because at least we are doing it legally, right? So, but yoga is beyond getting something. It's no longer about getting material gains, any kind of material gain. It is about escaping this cycle of liberation, cycle of birth and death. That is basically what yoga is all about. So a self-realized man has no purpose to fulfill in the discharge of his prescribed duties. So here he's talking about the Sthita Prajna, one who is self-realized, right, who has attained the divine consciousness. To him, once he has attained this kind of level of consciousness, then for him there is no duty. So even if he doesn't do anything, there is no sin. Until someone reaches that stage, if he does not do his duty, there is reaction. So this is what Krishna is saying. So basically he's telling Arjuna, don't prematurely renounce when you are not yet ready for it. There is a process, there is a step-by-step process, and it begins with you not giving up your duty. You continue your duty, adjust your thinking a little, adjust your consciousness a little in this manner, which I mentioned just now. Surrender all the fruits to the Lord and work in this way, step by step. So, but despite doing all this, a perfected person, one who has attained divine consciousness, has no work. But still, Krishna says, even if you have achieved perfection, such perfected souls will never show a bad example. They will still continue doing their work as if they have to do their work. But actually, to them, there is no more reaction already. So why do they do this? They do this to set an example. So this is a very famous verse. It's common sense also, but it's specifically mentioned by the Lord, and people memorize this as well. Yat yat acharati shreshtas tat tat evetaro janaha sayat pramanam kurute lokas tat anuvartate. Whatever action a great man performs, common men follow. And whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. So therefore, Krishna is telling Arjuna, please don't set a negative example. Then in the future, somebody will say, oh, you see, Arjuna, the great devotee and the great archer and the great personality, he ran away from battle and then he didn't want to do his duty and he went to the forest. So therefore, I also won't do my duty. I also will just go to the forest, or I will just renounce everything and take the shortcut. So this will create chaos. So therefore, Krishna says, even if you have attained and there is no longer duty, right? Don't set negative example, because this is how the world works. World generally likes to follow people, right? That's why this verse is very nicely captured by the advertisement industry. So the advertisement industry understands this very, very well. So what they do, they get famous people to wear their clothes, to wear their sunglasses, or to wear their watches, and then so that people will also want to do the same. Right, then move on. This is a nice verse also. Krishna will say, therefore, O Arjuna, surrendering all your work unto me with full knowledge of me. So this is a very important verse, another keystone verse. So I'll just say the Sanskrit also for our purification. Mayi sarvani karmani sanyasyadhyatma chetasa nirashir nirmamo bhutva yudhyasva vigata jwaraha. Therefore, O Arjuna, surrendering all your works unto me with full knowledge of me, without desires for profit, with no claims to proprietorship, and free from lethargy, fight. So, in other words, do your duty. So this statement applies for every one of us if you want to take this path of yoga. So what we should do our duty. How we should do our duty? We should surrender those fruits. We should dedicate it for the pleasure of the Lord, right? Always keeping, how do we do that? With full knowledge of me. That means we have to remember the Lord constantly when we are performing these duties, and in this way surrender this to the Supreme Lord. And then we should not have desires for profit. So this is yoga, karma yoga. So we do it as a matter of duty for the pleasure of the Lord, not because we are claiming to enjoy. So that is the problem. So the difference between yoga and karma kanda. So even if you want to enjoy, Krishna gives the pathway. At least perform the prescribed duties, perform sacrifice, and by performing sacrifice, we will get a taste for detachment. So in this way, slowly we will come to this level without desires for profit. And then if we continue, what else we need to do? No claims for proprietorship. We cannot say this is mine, right? Everything belongs to God. Is this my house? This is God's house. God has given me, and now I'm a caretaker in this way. So in this way, this body is also, we can't say it's our body. So that's why committing suicide and all that is considered sinful. So it is basically everything belongs to the Lord. And we are simply recognizing that only. And this is another very important point. Free from lethargy. So one who is in this consciousness, oh, I have no more motivation. I don't have motivation to do because you have taken away my desires. So, people like to say, without passion, how to work. There are ways to work without passion. Later on, we will hear about that. So if passion is taken away, if my desires have been taken away, if the fruit has been taken away, then how am I going to motivate myself? So Krishna says here, you cannot at that time be lethargic. That means, oh, I've got no more motivation, so therefore I will just, chinchai, simply do something, and then, then I give it to the Lord. Because after all, I'm giving it to the Lord. So therefore, it's not for me. So I'll just do a slipshod work. So free from lethargy. So he's telling Arjuna, don't just simply half-heartedly do, put your full effort in it and execute this duty, because by doing this, you please me. These are my instructions for you. So this is the instructions, basic instructions for all of us. We all have our duties to execute. So we need to do this for the pleasure of the Lord. And in this way, we develop our consciousness. We progress our consciousness to a higher level when we are ready for the next step of yoga. So right now, what are these dharmas? So there are different dharma. There are dharma for specific people, like how I said just now, a husband will have a dharma, a wife will have a specific set of dharma, and different dharmas are there, duties. But at the same time, there is also, this dharma is temporary dharma. The dharma which I mentioned just now, the husband duty, the wife duty, or the child duty, or the teacher duty, or whatever, these are all temporary dharma because they are in relation with the body. It has something to do with what we are, how we are born, right? And in our next life, the dharma will change. So it's a transient dharma which will change. But at the same time, there is also an eternal dharma. An eternal dharma which doesn't change. That is the dharma for the soul. So as souls, as those who have spiritual knowledge, it's necessary for us to also not only do material dharma, to also do spiritual dharma. Just like how in chapter 2, we heard about the story of the cage, right? The lady with the golden cage and the bird. So it's not just about polishing the golden cage, it is also about feeding the bird, which is the soul. So therefore, this dharma is there in every age. So, and by performing this dharma, one will purify our existence, we will elevate our consciousness, and in this way, this is the means in which we can attain spiritual destination. So what is this dharma I'm talking about? What is this soul's dharma? How do I do this soul's dharma? So therefore, we talk about the different ages. Now, there are 4 ages, millions of years. So it's called the Divya Yuga cycle. Yuga means age, right? So first of all, we had what is called the Satya Yuga or the Krita Yuga. 2 names for it, Satya or Krita. And this age is called the Golden Age. This is when, in the beginning, so it's about 1,728,000 years this golden age lasted. So for 1,728,000 years, the earth experienced a golden age in the past. So there are many points on this. The scriptures describe all the things that happened during this time. So for example, what are the pastimes that happened? Many pastimes, like the churning of the milk ocean. If you ever been to the Thailand airport, Suvarnabhumi airport, you will see a huge statue of Lord Vishnu in the center, and churning of the milk ocean. Samudra Mantan, they call it. So that pastime took place during that time. Actually, no, it took place before that also. There are, when the Lord appears, he appears as different avatars. There is Varaha avatar, Narasimha avatar. So like that, these avatars came during the Satya Yuga time. And it's described that people in those times, they were very, very long lived. So people in those days, they were huge in size, very large in stature. And they used to live for 100,000 years. That's the lifespan of a human being at that time. And everything was peaceful. There was hardly any vice, hardly people who were committing sins. So, and people were in a calm state of mind, and there were no cities in the world at that time. It was all, just forests, except the king. The king had the main city, but otherwise it was. And people used to be very peaceful. And it said that the dharma, we are talking about dharma, the dharma at that time. So they had different dharma at that time. So during Satya Yuga, the dharma at that time is Kriteya Dhyayato Vishnum. This is coming from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 12, Chapter 352. What does that mean? Kriteya is Satya Yuga. So during this Krite or Satya Yuga, the dharma which is meant for everybody's liberation is Dhyayato Vishnum. Basically, it is meditating. There is, in Satya Yuga, the process of spiritual emancipation or spiritual attainment was meditation. That was during Satya Yuga, during the golden age. But people could do it also, because later on in chapter 8, we will hear, chapter 6, sorry, we will hear about the details of meditation, and we will find that it's not very easy. So not many people in this world, you can count probably in your hands how many people can actually follow that type of meditation. So anyway, it was possible for people in those days because they were very long-lived and they were very peaceful in their mind. So they could do this, no distractions. Okay, then there was what we call Treta Yuga. Right after the Satya Yuga, then what is called the Silver Age began. So the Silver Age is called Treta Yuga, and this lasted for about 1.26 million years. And during this time is when Lord Ramachandra came. So his incarnation, right, Lord Ramachandra. So that's when the Ramayana took place. And it lasted for 1.26 million years. And the Yuga Dharma during that time, during Treta Yuga, so here a little bit of vice came inside already. So, it is said that there are 4 legs of Dharma, and during Treta Yuga, there are only 3 legs of Dharma. That means religiosity became diminished slowly. So in the golden age, it was full religiosity. In the Treta Yuga, the religiosity diminished slightly. And then in Dwapara Yuga, the next age, it diminished even more. And then in the Kali Yuga, it is almost completely diminished. So this is how the cycle of Yuga will go. And after Kali Yuga, then the cycle of Yuga will start again. So it's like a cycle. So Satya, Treta, Dwapara, Kali. Satya, Treta, Dwapara, Kali. So we are in the Kali Yuga, in the beginning of Kali Yuga. So before I go to Kali Yuga, let me talk about Treta Yuga. So in Treta Yuga, the primary method of spiritual realization is, according to this verse, Tretayam Yajato Makhai. In Treta Yuga, the process was by performing fire sacrifices. So Yagya began during the Treta Yuga. So that's why if you read Ramayana, you will find that the sages in the forest, many of them were performing lots and lots of fire sacrifices. So it's possible during that time also, because for fire sacrifice to be done, one needs to have pure brahmanas, right? You need at least 4 brahmanas to sit in a fire sacrifice, saying the mantras from the 4 Vedas. And then you need pure ingredients. So the ingredients cannot be adulterated like how it is nowadays. And the power of the mantras was so powerful, they could just light the fire simply by saying the mantra to light the fire. So that was during Treta Yuga, performing fire sacrifices. And then came Dwapara Yuga. So Dwapara Yuga lasted for 864,000. So people were, in Satya Yuga, people lived for 100,000 years. In Treta Yuga, they lived for 10,000 years. In Dwapara Yuga, people's lifespan was 1,000 years. So during this time, this is when Mahabharata took place. When Lord Krishna came, Arjuna, the Pandavas, and then you will also see, and when Mahabharata was taking place, it was towards the very end of Dwapara Yuga. It's almost just 36 years later, after the Mahabharata war, Kali Yuga will start. So that was during that time. And in Dwapara Yuga, the vice became even more pronounced. So, the dharma became less and less, and irreligiosity became more and more pronounced. So what was the dharma during that time? Because people in Dwapara Yuga, it's not practical for them to do meditation. Meditation was meant at that time when people used to live so long, their concentration was very focused. Treta Yuga, fire sacrifices, it was not so easy in Dwapara Yuga due to the situation. So in Dwapara Yuga, the method prescribed was basically Dwapare Paricharyayavam. In Dwapara Yuga, by serving the Lord's lotus feet. So basically, Paricharya means deity worship. So what happened in Dwapara Yuga, elaborate temples, beautiful, huge temples were erected throughout Dwapara Yuga, and the deities of the Lord were installed, and the kings used to conduct ceremonies every day, and daily they will have several ceremonies. The whole population who is like the entire it will be a temple city. So people used to revolve around the temple. Their lives, right? Their economy, their lives, everything used to revolve around the temple. Even now, you can see some vestige of it. Like if you go to what do you call that? Sri Rangam. Sri Rangam, few decades ago, was also like this. It's the biggest temple in the world, and over there you will see, it's like villages all around Sri Rangam, and the economy sort of revolves around the temple. So this used to be there, and it was having royal patronage. The kings were completely taking care of the temples, and all the wealth, everything was given to the Lord, offered to the Lord in these temples, and they were worshipped gorgeously. And people used to come morning, afternoon, evening, night. So they will take darshan. So this was the method of spiritual realization in the Dwapara Yuga. So nowadays in Kali Yuga, it's not so practical. We can't do this every day. People used to do it several times a day, right? Temple cities, we hardly find such things in Kali Yuga nowadays. So then began Kali Yuga, the dark age of Kali. So the golden age, the silver age, the bronze age, and the terrible steel age. So it's called the steel age. So obviously also we see a lot of steel structures. Steel is the most common metal found in the steel age. During the Dwapara, bronze was very common. And during the Treta Yuga, silver was abundant. And during the Satya Yuga, gold was abundant. So all this progressively reduced. So now what is the Dharma in Kali Yuga? So the Dharma in Kali Yuga, Kalauta Dari Kirtanat. So simply by this, so you can, if you see the translation, whatever benefits which was obtained in Satya Yuga by meditation, or in Treta Yuga by fire sacrifices, or in Dwapara Yuga by Paricharyayam, which is temple worship, the same benefits can be obtained in Kali Yuga simply by chanting the Hari Kirtanat, Hari Kirtan, the names of Hari. So why particularly this mantra? That mantra is there in scripture. Later on, we will show you in other chapters. So this is basically the recommendation in the age of Kali. So we will find this in many scriptures, not only one. Bhagavad Gita will say, Srimad Bhagavatam, many other Puranas, in the Upanishads also it will be mentioned. We will talk about that later on. So here we have this verse from Bhagavatam. In this age of Kali, people are short-lived, 100 years only. That's the general lifespan, right? Dwapara Yuga was 1,000 years. Here it is 100 years. So in general, people are not as intelligent as they were. Everything in a human being is reduced in Kali Yuga compared to the previous ages. So previous ages, everybody had photographic memory in Dwapara Yuga, right? They could memorize everything. So there was no need for books. So in Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, there was no need for books, anything to be written down. People simply had to say something and then they could memorize it just like that. Photographic memories. Nowadays in Kali Yuga, we have maybe about 0.5% of the population who may have photographic memories. But majority, we can't remember what we did 3 days ago or even yesterday. If suddenly I ask you, what did you eat 3 days ago for lunch? You will have to probably think. Even if I think for some time also, I don't think I'll remember. Okay, anyway, so that is basically Kali Yuga. So in the age of Kali, intelligent persons perform congregational chanting to worship the incarnation of Godhead, who constantly sings the names of Krishna. Although his complexion is not blackish, he is Krishna himself. He is accompanied by his associates, servants, weapons, and confidential companions. So basically, this is a prediction. So the 11th canto and the 12th canto of the Bhagavatam gives a lot of predictions. And they may predict a lot of things like Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad, all these all are predicted in the scriptures. So like that, here it is predicting the advent of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, another incarnation of Krishna, who appeared about 500 years ago, and he propagated the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and from then onwards, it spread all over the world. So that is basically, it is based on this prediction from this verse. So it's part of the Yuga Dharma. So with that, we'd like to end chapter 3. So before we end, I'd like to give you some key takeaways. So chapter 3, if you remember, is entitled Karma Yoga, right? The yoga of action. So the key takeaways are, first Arjuna was asking, the question. So should I, which is better? You're telling me first fight, and then you're telling me, yoga. So how to understand this? So then Krishna gave very clear instructions. Don't artificially renounce because you're not ready, right? Instead, art of work. I recommend to everybody Karma Yoga. So perform your duties, don't change situations, maintain the situation, don't create havoc in society. So therefore, continue your work, but adjust your consciousness, adjust our consciousness, renounce the fruits, and offer everything to the Lord. So how to do this, how to renounce? Very simple. Simply dedicate all activities and dovetail it to me. Krishna says to Arjuna. So I'm telling you to fight, right? So fight because I'm telling you, do it for me. So therefore, in the same way, every duty can be, we are taking care of a family, do it for the pleasure of the Lord. Remember that the Lord has given us this family for our duty to please him in this way. And by doing this, the community is benefited also. And at the same time, we do not get reactions. So, and also we need to cultivate detachment while doing this. So the perfection of Karma Yoga, one also has to eventually come to the point of detachment, but at the same time performing the duty perfectly for the Lord. So then Krishna says, in case you cannot detach, still do your duty, dovetail it to me, but detachment will slowly come. Perform sacrifices, and in this way you will learn renunciation. It will come to you. So learn to understand that this is not yours. Everything comes from the Lord. We are simply caretakers, and we need to do our part to perform sacrifices for the pleasure of the Lord. And liberation is not work, but cultivating the right consciousness. This is a very important key point. So it is not simply we change our clothes to saffron, or we start, doing some strange things or whatever. This is the real value. It begins with this cultivating the right consciousness. And then we talked about the dharma. So since we're speaking about dharma, we have temporary dharma, temporary duties for the body, but we also have spiritual duties if we are interested in attaining the spiritual realization. So spiritual duties, they are according to the yuga. So in Kali Yuga, especially, right, the method prescribed is basically food for the soul is chanting the names of God. So here in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna will say, sacrifice. He's telling about sacrifice, right? Perform sacrifices. But in chapter 10, verse 25, Krishna will say, of sacrifices, of all sacrifices, the greatest of that is, I am the chanting of the holy names. That means he's like saying, he's saying, amongst animals, I am the lion. Amongst fishes, I am the shark. Amongst devatas, I am like Indra. He's giving examples, analogy. So therefore he says, of sacrifices, I am he'll say, among men, I am the king. So therefore he's saying, of all sacrifices, I am the chanting of the holy names, japa. So this is basically the instruction given in Bhagavad Gita. So therefore, let us all chant together, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So if we can do this daily, it is very, very purifying. So usually what we do, we spend about some time to chant this Maha Mantra daily. So we can use what we call, this is like a bead pack. So this is a bead. We can use beads here, and then it's, if you use these beads, it's 108 beads around it. So that means we chant this mantra 108 times, and then we move on to the next bead, and then again chant Hare Krishna, and then move on to the next bead, next bead, next bead. So like that 108 times is chanted. So this is called one round of japa. So it will commonly take you 8 minutes, 7 to 8 minutes, in the speed. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. If you chant like that, then it will take you about 8 minutes. If you chant a bit slower, then a bit longer. So we just have to do this every day, and slowly we can increase the number of rounds as we are able to progress. So in this way, we are giving food for the soul and performing our spiritual dharma. So with that, we'd like to end. So here's the Gita kit, and okay, this certificate. This is a certificate course. So later on, I will send you the links for the quiz. Please do attempt the quiz. In case you are not able to click the link, you try to click the link and it doesn't work for you, let me know, and I will see what I can do for you. Right? So this is basically the we need to say, and you should remember, this is group 14. In the quiz, they will ask you which group. So this is group 14. This is a picture of our temple. And yeah, so now we will ask you, are there any questions before we end?
Prabhu, this is Ganesh.
Yes.
The certificate, I know, even though it's not important, is it a digital certificate or is it a hard copy certificate?
Well, when it was during COVID, we used to give digital certificates, but now that things are opening up, I think they will have a ceremony in the temple, something like a graduation. They may give you a hard copy, I think, but I'm not sure. I can check. I'll let you know, Prabhu.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, Prabhu, this is Rajan here, Prabhu.
Yes, Rajan, Prabhu.
Okay, so my question may sound a bit naive, but what I noticed that you've interchangeably used the Supreme Lord as Lord Krishna and Lord Vishnu. Who actually, according to the Gita, is the supreme ultimate God? Is it Lord Krishna or Lord Vishnu? If it's Lord Krishna, then what about all the other avatars of Lord Krishna? Okay. Or is it Lord Vishnu?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. It's a very nice question. Actually, I'm saving all that for later on. But anyway, since you have asked this question, basically, Lord Vishnu and Lord Krishna are the same persons. An easy way to understand this is like this. Okay, never mind. Before I go into that, avatarams, like you will see how Krishna later on in this Bhagavad Gita, he will mention in various ways how he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, but when you say Vishnu, it's basically the same thing. The difference is only, like, at home, we are, the family members will know us as father or mother or children. They will call us our names. But when we go out to work, we have a different, we wear our uniform, or we wear a different set of clothes, and we behave slightly differently. We have a certain personality. Like somebody may be a king, but when he's at home, the child may come on the king, and then he will say, I want to climb on you, father. So then the king will say, okay, climb on me. So this kind of relationship is there. But when the king is in court, the child cannot do the same thing. So, but still the person is the same. So that's the understanding here is basically, Bhagavad Gita says, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So at home, God is Krishna. When God goes to work, then he is called Vishnu. So Vishnu Avatar, Vishnu, if you see, he has 4 arms, right? So it's very majestic. And basically the idea is for the purpose of creation. So the universe, the creation of the universe, the purpose of protecting the universe and all that. So therefore, the Lord takes this particular form, and it's not the same Lord in that sense because he expands himself, he duplicates himself. So Krishna is always Krishna. For the purpose of creation, Krishna expands himself into Mahavishnu. And then from Mahavishnu, or what we call Karanodakashayi Vishnu, from there he expands into Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. From there he expands into Shirodakashayi Vishnu. And in this way, he enters into all our hearts. So all this is later on information. We will talk more about this in later chapters. And we will go very much in detail about the differences in the rasa, in the taste, in the mellow, in the worship between Krishna and Vishnu. But as far as we are concerned, for now, it is the same. Lord Vishnu is equally the Supreme Lord. Lord Krishna is also equally the Supreme Lord. And the other avatars of the Supreme Lord are also the same. Lord Narsimhadev, Lord Varahadev, Ramachandra. In this way, they are all part and parcel. They're all expansions of the Lord. So this is a detailed subject matter. When we talk about avatarams, there are many classifications of avatarams. There is the Guna avatar, there is the Purusha avatar, there is the Satyavesh avatar, there's the Leela avatar. So these are categories of avatars. So it's a technical matter. If you are patient with us at level 2, we will speak in detail towards the later part. Okay, Prabhu, is that okay for now?
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Yes,
Okay.
thank you very much. Thank you very
All right,
much.
sure. But don't worry also, even in level 1, as we go into chapters 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, that's where you will really see a lot of revelations about the real position of the Lord. Okay, any other questions from anybody? I see something in chat. Ganesh Prabhu, he's asking, you mentioned when one dies, there is heaven, so you can have enjoyment. But in Hinduism, there is no heaven or hell. How to enjoy? Actually, there is. I'm not sure why you are saying in Hinduism there is no heaven or hell. There is. There are actually so many different types of heavens and so many different types of hell. It is described in so many Puranas. Garuda Purana describes all the different types of hell. You can also find that in Bhagavatam. The different types of heaven is also described. There are basically 7 planetary systems above us and 7 planetary dimensions. I wouldn't say systems, they are dimensions below us. So, you know, Bhu, Bhur, Swarga. So like that, upper planetary systems, Bhuloka is in the middle, and below that is the lower planetary systems. And then below that is hell, the different Patala Loka, and below that. So it is there. So, but there is something beyond these things also. So we will discuss this in detail. Actually, this is very high subject matter. We need to go step by step first. But anyway, keep the questions coming. We will get them answered by the end of this course. So let's go step by step. The Bhagavad Gita has a lot of things to reveal to us. So it begins with soul, then it goes to Karma Yoga, and then we will these details will be described more from chapter 13 onwards. They like the details about what you're saying, you know, hell, heaven, and all that. Okay, Prabhu, I hope that satisfies for now, and we beg everybody's patience with this course until we can fully review to all of you. Anything else to ask? Okay. So there's nothing else. So that's fine also. That means we can end today. So I'll send you the quiz. Thank you so much for your participation. We will see you again tomorrow. Hare Krishna. Hare Bol. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Bol.
Jai.
Bhagavad Gita ki jai.
Jai. Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.